Hello and welcome. I'm Gene Hall, your host of Rural Texas right here on the RFD television network. It's stock show season in Texas, and folks all around the state have been putting on their boots and hats and going out to see the kids show their livestock and maybe even take in a rodeo. Something else that's going on is the Texas Legislature is meeting, as they do every other year, and one of the issues of great concern to farmers and ranchers and rural landowners is that of eminent domain, the taking of land for public projects. Senior reporter Tom Nicoletti is in Austin, and he has that story.
The concern about property owners having adequate protection through eminent domain proceedings under current Texas law is once again being debated during the current session of the state legislature. Urban as well as rural landowners across the state could be impacted by condemnation rulings. Texas Farm Bureau, the organization which represents the largest number of farmers and ranchers in the state, has its position on eminent domain as it should apply to agricultural producers and rural landowners.
Right now we feel like the process is sort of broken and it needs to be fixed. One is procedurally. Procedurally, there was a Supreme Court case, a Texas Supreme Court case, that allowed condemners to make lowball offers to the property owners, and then the property owners are in a bind whether to take it or not.
And then it's up to the property owner to have to pay the cost to go to court, and I don't think that's acceptable.
The Farm Bureau believes adequate compensation should have a jury consider all factors similar to private negotiations. These would include agricultural relocation costs, replacement value, appraisal for the highest and best use, and rental payments from profit-generating projects.
Secondly, we're very concerned about adequate compensation. We feel that right now compensation is not adequate. It doesn't take all the different factors into account whenever a person's property is being condemned.
At the state capitol in Austin, House Representative Beverly Woolley co-chaired an interim committee to study the power of eminent domain.
I have come to realize that people who have to give up their property in a taking, and sometimes it is necessary, that's all there is to it, should not suffer the economic damage, though, for the good of the whole.
The other co-chair of the interim committee was Senator Kyle Janik.
Primarily, there is the number one question of who gets the power of eminent domain in the state. People are often shocked to find out that unelected folks on university boards of regents and through other hospital districts and so forth are able to have the power of eminent domain, and yet they're not elected officials. And that troubles a lot of people.
Entities that can condemn land in Texas number into the hundreds. Various eminent domain intrusions are always possible, such as the construction of highways, pipelines, utility lines, hospitals, schools, and airports.
While the individual uses may differ from one area to the next, it's more likely that your land in a rural area is going to be taken for a highway project or some other infrastructure needs than for, say for example, a crime-ridden area, which we'll see more of in Houston, which we've seen a lot of actually, particularly in the aftermath of Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. While those individual issues may vary from one area to the next, it is, at the end of the day, still about the government or some quasi-governmental agency coming in and taking land that belongs to an individual. So that issue never really changes.
But if we can have a constitutional amendment that defines public use more clearly, it would be safer from being changed in the future because it's in the Constitution, it's harder to change, versus just a statute that lawmakers can come in and change next session.
The Texas Legislature has until the end of May to address the eminent domain issue. For Rural Texas, this is Tom Nicoletti in Austin.
Thanks, Tom. We'll be right back with more of Rural Texas.
Agriculture is Texas' renewable industry, not only growing food and fiber for Texas families, but creating 1 in 5 Texas jobs. I'm Mike Barnett, editor of Texas Agriculture. In our publication, you'll read profiles of the trendsetters of agriculture in the Lone Star State. We'll bring you profiles of farmers and ranchers surviving and thriving on the land and the issues shaping the future of rural Texas. Read all about it in Texas Agriculture, an exclusive benefit of your Texas Farm Bureau membership.
People who live in Texas but were not born here will sometimes say they got here as fast as they could. Well, not long ago in Fort Stockton, Texas, we talked to a man who is a successful agricultural entrepreneur. At age 12, he came to the U.S. as an immigrant from Mexico. Meet Furman Venegas, Farm Bureau member, American, Texan, legal immigrant from Mexico, and successful agricultural entrepreneur. In Mexico, his name would be pronounced Fermin, but Texas has left its mark on Venegas, and he's accepted the pronunciation his legions of friends and customers use, Furman. Whatever you call him, you'd also have to call him a success in his adopted land. Today, he is the owner and manager of the Genesis Wire Company of Fort Stockton. It is a phenomenally successful business, one that's a long way from his birthplace in Mexico, a journey not measured in miles alone. At age 12, Furman left Mexico as a legal immigrant with his father, an American citizen. In Mexico, he shined shoes and sold gum to help earn a meager living. In fact, when he crossed the Rio Grande, the single word gum, carefully pronounced to his customers, was the only word of English he knew. The family settled in Rock Springs, Texas, and almost immediately he began to work with fencing crews, first as a water boy.
And at the time I didn't know, I was young and I didn't know much about fencing, so they used me just as a water boy to haul water for the fence builders. Rock Springs is pretty rocky and hill country. So it was hard country, and I was just a water boy for the time.
It wasn't long, though, before Furman picked up the pliers, staples, and hammer and learned to build a quality fence. Language barriers made life difficult for the young immigrant, but his new skill was an unspoken yet universal language in West Texas. While yet a teen, he became a fence builder and shearer of sheep and goats full-time. In time, the language barriers were overcome, and Furman Venegas fell in love with building fences and the great expanse of Texas that he crisscrossed with wire. He established Genesis Wire in the Fort Stockton area. Eventually, the drive to build Texas' best fences led him into vertical integration of a sort.
Well, we had a hard time finding suppliers that would supply our product or our fencing materials. It just started like a thought, just an idea, you know, that if we could get our own weaving machine where we can weave our own wire, it would be a big advantage to our operation. So we searched, and it took us 5 years to find this particular machine. We found it in New Zealand.
Furman's story is a new twist on the old entrepreneurial story. He found a niche and developed efficiency to the point that he could build a fence much faster and cheaper than the ranchers could themselves. He built it, and they came.
Mainly it's West Texas, from San Angelo all the way to southern New Mexico, the Roswell area, and mainly it's ranchers that are in the ranching business.
Timing is important in business, some say, and the birth of Genesis Wire came about at the same time that thousands of miles of West Texas fences erected in the 1920s began to collapse.
Fencing was installed at one time back in the early teens, 20s, and all the fences are falling down now as we speak. So it happened at our time, and so it's a big business.
The Venegas family is also involved in the professional shearing of sheep and goats, though that business is in decline.
Shearing is a dying industry, so fencing has started picking up because it don't matter what kind of business you're in, whether you're hunting or goats or cattle, you got to have good fences. Ranchers, all you got to do is show me the starting point and the place to stop, and we'll take the fence down, bulldoze the trees, and install a new fence. That way the rancher can go on with his business, taking care of his ranch, and that way it would take a headache out of his daily life, where we can just go out there and take care of his fences.
Furman Venegas has made the transition from immigrant to laborer to successful agricultural entrepreneur, and along the way helped develop a blueprint for the American dream. We'll be right back with more of Rural Texas.
Attending college is a goal of many young people, but getting on campus is very expensive. That's where Texas Farm Bureau can help. As members of the Texas Farm Bureau, students can compete for thousands of dollars in scholarships through Texas Farm Bureau's annual statewide contests. Free enterprise speech, talent find, and Miss TFB. The Texas Farm Bureau, making a difference for agriculture and rural Texas.
Texas agriculture has changed a great deal over the years. There are now fewer people working on farms and more of the people that work on the agricultural businesses that support them. The Texas Farm Bureau developed a contest called Excellence in Agriculture, and it showcases the people who do not necessarily make a living on the farm, but rather work in those agriculture and agribusiness support functions. We did a video of the 3 finalists in those awards. Tom Nicoletti has that and brings it to you right now.
This year's Excellence in Agriculture Award finalists are Manda Catino from the Rio Grande Valley, Will and Becky Coward from Central Texas, and Jerry Reynolds from the Gulf Coast. Let's take a few minutes to learn more about these young people making a difference in agriculture for today and tomorrow. Our first stop is at the southern tip of Texas in the Rio Grande Valley. This is where Agricultural Extension Agent Manda Catino provides educational leadership in cotton pest management and production within a tri-county area, including Cameron, Hidalgo, and Willacy counties. Part of her responsibilities is getting the message out to students.
I think it's important that we have ag days for these students to teach them about or show them what a cotton plant looks like and where their cotton is coming from, as well as teach them about insects. You know, not all insects are bad, a majority of insects are good. That way they're not afraid of insects, and maybe we can spark an interest in agriculture.
It is here at Texas Cooperative Extension in Weslaco that Manda, as an extension agent, with an emphasis on integrated pest management or IPM, works on applied research projects on cotton and various grain varieties in addition to insecticide effectiveness. The results are communicated to 300 Valley farmers and agriculture industry representatives in a weekly educational newsletter.
The IPM scouting program is the basis for my program, because if we don't know what insect or pest populations are out there, then we don't know what we need to address. Just like, for example, this year our IPM scouting program detected whiteflies in cotton, and from there we could just see the population is building, and we were able to decide that we need to put out 2 whitefly insecticide trials to evaluate the insecticides that are on the market currently.
When in the field, Manda meets with producers on a regular basis to evaluate cotton development and to examine the growth of pest populations.
During the season, if there's an insect population that's emerging in one of the fields that me or one of my scouts is scouting, then I like to call the grower, meet with them, possibly go to this field and show them where the pest problem is, and we can discuss options that he may have. Right now there's a lot of new varieties being introduced into the market, and these growers in the valley need to know how the varieties are performing compared to the old varieties, because in the end it's all about the net return, you know, how much the growers are going to be able to make off their cotton crop.
Manda grew up on her grandparents' farm in Carlsbad, New Mexico. She was involved in 4-H and FFA activities and then went on to earn college degrees at New Mexico State University and the University of Arizona.
I have a lot of respect for growers. My grandfather was a cotton and alfalfa producer, and from then on, I mean, after watching what he goes through as a producer, I wanted to do something to help other producers. I guess the most challenging aspect would be just keeping up with what's going on in the fields. As you can see, weather changes rapidly, as well as insect and pest populations, and you want to catch them early.
Another aspect of Manda's position is making presentations at state and national meetings that address cotton and entomology issues, such as the introduction of new pests into the United States.
This last week I was at the Entomology Science Conference, where it's entomologists throughout the state who work both in agricultural settings as well as urban settings. We look at the different insecticide trials or variety trials, as well as like plant growth regulator and herbicide trials that were done because all of this information is brought together and we use this to make our recommendations to growers.
Looking into the future, Manda sees changes in agriculture as farmers adjust to the latest technologies available.
Well, I think that the future of agriculture, we're going to see a lot of changes in how growers address producing crops, because they're not only going to be producing crops to feed people, they're also going to be producing crops for biodiesel or ethanol plants. So I think that we're going to see a switch and some of the commodities are produced. And also I think there's going to probably be an increase in the genetic engineering.
We now travel north to Gatesville in Coryell County. Here we find Will and Becky Coward sharing their knowledge of agriculture with their two children, Jenna and Kyle, on their family ranch which dates back 4 generations. Will grew up here, while Becky grew up on a farm in Milam County.
I really enjoy my ag operation on the side. I can't wait to get my jacket off and get home, put my blue jeans and my hat on and check my cows.
Away from the ranch, Will, a Tarleton State University graduate, is Senior Vice President and Loan Officer at the National Banks of Central Texas. Becky, also a TSU graduate, is a guidance counselor at Gatesville Intermediate School.
It's a lot of fun. The kids share personal stories with me all the time. They bring their photo albums. They really want to share part of their lives. And as a counselor, because I'm trying to fulfill one of those support systems, it's important that I know what's going on in their lives, and I know what resources I can best use to help them.
At the National Banks of Central Texas, Will works with agricultural producers by assisting them in securing loans. Approximately half of his portfolio is directly related to agriculture. Will helps secure about $6 million in cattle and equipment loans and another $6 million in ag real estate loans for local ranchers and farmers.
I enjoy my farm and ranch customers the most of any that I have, partly because of my personal involvement in agriculture, but daily involvement with them is important just to keep the flow of information going between me and them. I probably learn as much from them every day as they learn from me, but hopefully I'm a good source of information for them. Agriculture is an industry that needs a lot of credit, a lot of borrowed money, and I mean, I know that personally, but I just enjoy being able to help a young farmer and rancher get started, to help an existing farmer and rancher buy a new piece of land. It's just very satisfying for me.
Back at Gatesville Intermediate, Becky focuses her attention on character education classes that teach students the importance of various traits such as honesty and responsibility. Another essential part of her job is one-on-one student counseling.
A student that I see one-on-one has a deeper need than just the character education program. They have a need that is not being fulfilled, and it may be something in the classroom, it may be something at home, but I'm trying to reach those students on a deeper level and help fulfill whatever need that may be. We have students that are dyslexic. We have students who come from family background who no one has ever been to college, so they have no desire to further their education. They don't realize the value of education. So trying to fulfill that need and explain the importance of education to those students is something that I enjoy doing and work with quite a bit.
Becky is excited about a new program introduced at the school this year. She received the idea from a Farm Bureau Young Farmer and Rancher meeting earlier this year.
I have a dairyman in Dublin that is going to be adopted by one of my 4th grade science classes, and we're going to make a direct connection where we have an agriculture producer with a 4th grade classroom, and they are going to converse back and forth and email, and then we're going to hopefully take a trip to the dairy, and the dairyman's going to come visit them on occasion, and they're going to learn about what agriculture is really like. They're going to learn about the challenges that agriculturalists face, and they're also going to learn about the things that agriculturalists do to improve the environment and just how concerned we really are.
Another method Becky is utilizing to get the message of agriculture across is through pasture plant identification sessions with students.
We work on learning all the names of the forbs, legumes, woody plants, and grasses in the state of Texas, what values they have, whether or not they're poisonous to livestock. And these are real issues that the kids are facing now and their parents are facing now, especially in drought conditions. And they learn, what plants they need to get off their land and how to control them and manage them. and it's a really important group, and I enjoy doing that.
Will believes young people have a tremendous future in agriculture.
As our older farmers and ranchers retire over the next 20 years, and as more land is taken out of ag production by urban sprawl and recreational land use, and our population grows and needs a growing food source, that one of these days, when all that comes together, ag producers will be paid well for their products.
The final destination on this Excellence in Agriculture tour is Beasley in Southeast Texas. This is where Jerry Reynolds of Richmond serves as general manager of Beasley Farmers Gin Company.
Basically, what that involves is making sure in the spring and the summertime that I have a crew. We get the cotton gin repaired to the best of its ability, changing bearings and saws and chains and sprockets, so on and so forth, getting the cotton ready for the ginning season, which for us starts around the first part of August. At that point, I'm responsible for getting 1 or 2 crews to run 12 or 24-hour shifts to get the cotton in here, get it ginned as efficiently and timely as possible so the producer can turn around and sell his crop and hopefully take advantage of any market upturns.
The independent gin serves cotton farmers from Fort Bend, Brazoria, and Austin counties. The facility just completed its longest and busiest season, turning out 17,000 bales of cotton from the 3-county region. Crops ranged from 2 to 3 bales per acre. Jerry grew up around the oil fields of West Texas in the Midland area. He graduated from Texas A&M University. He just completed his 7th season as GM of this cotton gin. Along the way, Jerry explains why his position is a very rewarding but challenging experience.
I enjoy agriculture. It's a way for me to be involved with producers, do a good job for them. It's a challenging role at times. Dealing with seasonal labor is probably the toughest. Certainly the issues there can be trying at times. The weather, we had a good long harvest season. It was dry most of the time, but the last 10 days we had 12 inches in about 10 days. So that can make it difficult as well.
The diversification of the general manager's position allows Jerry to visit with producers on a daily basis to discuss marketing options for their crop. A small percentage of the cotton produced in the United States stays here. A large portion of U.S. cotton is exported overseas.
It behooves us to strive to continue to improve the quality of our cotton, and I mean the quality staple length, good long staple length, just produce a good quality fiber, clean cotton, make sure that we do everything we can to protect the cotton itself in the bale. And what I mean by that is contamination can occur all the way from the farmer's field to the cotton gin, whether it's a plastic bag, whether it's grease or oil or something of that nature. And as gin managers, we need to try to strive to make sure that we produce a good quality product, especially the product that's being sent overseas, because they hold us to a higher standard.
As a service to the community, Jerry works with Farm Bureau's mobile learning barn to demonstrate how cotton is ginned and the importance of the industry to the economy. He is always looking for upgrades in the operation, be it the latest in agricultural equipment or innovative methods of ginning at a small facility in Southeast Texas.
The cotton comes in at a certain percentage of moisture, and we have to dry that cotton down to a lower percentage of moisture, somewhere around 4 or 5%, to allow us to more easily gin the cotton. If the cotton leaves the gin at that 4% moisture and goes to the warehouse, it's going to gain back a certain percentage of moisture at some point. Well, if we can add that moisture back at the cotton gin level, then that puts that moisture percentage dollar-wise back in our producer's pocket.
Jerry believes Beasley Farmers Gin offers excellent customer service and extends its gratitude to those farmers who do business at the gin.
We just have a customer appreciation dinner at the end of the season whenever it wraps up, and we all meet over at the local fire station facility and have the dinner catered, and it's just a time of, I'll go in and thank all the producers for their business for the year.
In the years ahead, Jerry says managing an agricultural operation in this area of the state will be a challenge.
I'll be honest, this area is tough. We're 40 miles from downtown Houston, and this area is losing acreage every year, row crop acreage and pasture land every year to housing development. Concrete is a big product around here nowadays. This area is going to have to come together and work together to try to survive this. But it's going to be tough for a young person to try to come into this area and want to do something.
A tough decision for the judges, but Will and Becky Coward of Gatesville were announced as the winners of the Excellence in Agriculture competition. Well, that's our show for this week. Next time, we'll take a look at Planet Agriculture, which is a large traveling showcase of the wonderful world of agriculture in Texas. Join us again right here on the RFD Television Network.